Thank you so much, Steve. Every organization wants to do more with less, but most aren't doing it all that well. Our panel today will share what's working, what's not, and what you should try next at your organization. So first, I'd like to begin by hearing a little bit more about our guests. Milena, let's start with you.
Oh, it's my turn. Hi, everybody. I am the co-founder and CEO of PowerToFly. We help companies retain and recruit inclusive and top talent. And we do that with exceptional events and expert guidance. And feel very lucky to be here today to talk about productivity in the workplace. Thanks for having us.
We're lucky to have you. Paris?
Hi, everyone. My name is Paris Hunter. I currently serve as the head of HR for Medable. Medable is a decentralized clinical trial platform, and our whole purpose is to get therapies to patients faster. So happy to be here.
Excellent. Shipra?
Sorry, did not almost bring myself off mute. Hi, everybody. I'm Shipra Malhotra. I oversee HR technology and analytics for Alta Performance Materials. I have worked in HR tech domain for over 20 years. I have extensive experience in HR digitization, business transformation, HR operating model through shared services. And underneath all the system stuff, I'm really a mentor and a coach, and I'm passionate about talent and culture.
Excellent. And finally, Deepa. Oh, I don't see Deepa.
Sorry, I was
Okay.
on mute. Sorry.
It's
Hello,
okay.
everyone. I head the talent acquisition for this organization called Valtech. I take care of the Valtech India hiring. And we are working on very emerging and niche technologies. And we are right now on the mission of improving our headcount across the AppMina divisions right now. It's such a pleasure to be here among all of you today.
Excellent. Let's dig in. Paris, I'm going to start with you because you are managing a fully remote team across 20 countries while also focusing on sustainable growth. What are some of the biggest productivity challenges you're seeing today, and how are they different from, say, what you were facing 5 years ago?
Yeah, I would say our biggest challenge today is burnout, right? We were lucky where we started as 100% remote, right? Having a product that's 100% remote, that's our priority. So we have that luxury versus, having to send people home and bring them back into the office. Now it's just burnout, right? And it's not even just, I would say, the workload, it's everything happening in the world. The world hasn't been the same since COVID. So what I have employees dealing with currently looks very, very different than the pre-COVID times. So really helping people balance what's going on in their lives and work, and how can we increase flexibility but still truly be productive without burning people out. So really like reducing the noise, trying to protect people's energy. At the same time, I think a struggle for us is we've realized the importance of in-person connection and that we're missing that. So it has been a challenge for us, and actually very expensive to get people together, because we've had people, when we were in growth mode, we were hiring everywhere. And we realized that that wasn't necessarily the best approach. So, we have a project right now where we're going through what I'm calling a global transformation, where we're really working to create hubs instead and be really strategic about hiring, so we can actually get people together more to create better synergy, and then also hopefully balance some of the burnout.
Wow, lots of stuff there. Shipra, how are you seeing this challenge, this burnout challenge that Paris was talking about, in terms of reducing the noise, but also protecting people's energy? How are you seeing that play out differently across industries from your perspective?
It's very, very similar, I have to say. In fact, Paris has really touched on one of the key elements here. I'll throw a little bit of a systems perspective there. So much of digitization, automation, new tools, new systems. There is so much burnout that people are experiencing with a wide variety of tools even that's thrown to them and expected to kind of use them to help them be more productive. And it kind of in our world, in the systems world, as we hear more and more, the question that everyone is really trying to ask these days is, where's the value realization from the value proposition that you sold to us? And that's coming from the burnout, from the tools and technologies that has flooded our lives.
Milena, does all of what we're hearing today resonate with you at Power to Fly? Because you work with companies of all sizes. Are you seeing these same patterns emerge in how organizations are struggling with these issues? Milena? Oh, I think you're on mute. I think you're on mute.
Yes, I'm on mute, my favorite. Yes, thank you so much, Rebecca. And absolutely, the talking points resonate with me, but I also want to use this opportunity to expand the conversation a little bit. So, absolutely, burnout and kind of this whole, we all went remote. Now everybody's go back in the office is really affecting people's morale, I think. And they kind of got used to working from home, and now having to go back in the office is really been problematic, and I think affects the morale, which then of course affects productivity. But I think I would love to also say that part of what we're dealing with, and I'm seeing this across so many of our companies, is they're a little bit paralyzed in fear from a management perspective because they don't really know what the headcount of the future looks like. And so they're like stalling in their hiring plans. They're stalling, in their headcount plans, which then, of course, affects, like there's just a lot of uncertainty of who's going to be doing these jobs in the future. And to kind of talk a little bit about, the usual suspect here, but with the arrival of AI technology, we're going to really see a big impact on, how companies think about headcount, and that comes with a lot of fear of, am I going to have my job? What's going to happen to my job? Yes, we can be empowered and automate a lot of the mundane tasks, but people are kind of in a lot of more of a fear space of the arrival of AI, and they also are not taking the right time to do that in a compliant and thoughtful way. So there's just a lot of opportunity on the table when you kind of think about the bigger thing, which is, let's talk about productivity.
Yeah, I'm so much there too, and we are going to get more into AI later in the conversation. But Deepa, I want to ask you, when you're talking with candidates, are you noticing that expectations around this sustainable ways of working are changing, particularly as candidates are interested in hearing about employers' in-office culture, remote culture, and all those kinds of issues? Deepa?
Yes, of course. Candidates are, yes, of course. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
No, candidates are looking for definitely a lot more today. They're looking for hybrid options. They're looking for a lot more of their values, which is
Ooh, I think now that this connection seems a little wobbly,
with their.
unfortunately. I think I'm going to move on to the next question because I think the connection's a little too wobbly and you're frozen right now. Milena, let's go back to you because what you were talking about with AI and all the fears associated with AI, we know that it is transformative and has beyond use. It has uses beyond just coding. We're seeing it in sales and marketing and other industries. Can you share some specific examples of how companies are successfully scaling individual productivity?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's just a couple of areas of opportunity, and they actually exist in pretty much every business sector, in every kind of department of a company. So I'll use the example specifically, let's say, optimizing productivity in sales, or the counterpart, optimizing productivity in recruiting, which is also a version of sales, really, but you're working with, bringing candidates through or not, dollars. And I think there's literally kind of three main buckets. One, automating low value tasks. One is kind of augmenting human decision making with data. And the third is really, strategically implementing tools to accelerate kind of the results and let's say the sales cycle in the sales, but closing the candidates in the recruiting case. And if you think about kind of the augmenting, human decision making with data, and like one thing I'm going to say is that the most successful companies are really not thinking about AI as the replacement of humans, but more of AI as augmenting the human touch and the human capability. Somebody who used to work for me used to call this the bots with hearts, right? It's not just one or the other. It's like them working optimally together that really creates this magic. And I think and specifically on sales, in terms of automating low value tasks, you can think about automating lead and contact relationship management, CRM updates, or kind of streamlining the scheduling, that both in terms of in the sales meetings scheduling is kind of back and forth, a repetitive task. You also like do that in recruiting. In sales, you can also, and in recruiting, you can use AI powered chatbots to cover first the first whatever basic questions that normally would require a recruiter to be talking to you or a salesperson to be talking to you. You also can use it to like streamline notes taking, right? You can feed in a recording of a call and, oh my God, the summary is right there. Or the new features that we're seeing in email where like, oh, these are the top 3 points that instead of reading a whole email, you're getting the point just from that summary. I mean, that's just some kind of, examples, and I'm happy to give more, but I don't want to take too much of the conversation. I know we have a lot to get through here.
We have a lot to get through, and I think that deepest connection is improved. So I'd love to hear from a talent perspective what challenges or opportunities you're seeing in terms of helping employees adopt AI and other productivity tools without overwhelming or scaring them. Deepa?
See, I see a lot of opportunities for the people who would like to adopt their new tools, right? I see a lot of opportunities. Absolutely, the people who have around 5+ years experience in the industry, the recent pass outs, have a lot more passion to use new tools and things like that. So, and in fact, they are using it more to enhance their productivity, right? Compared to the people who used to work in the past. The recent coders and the recent technology staff are trying best to use it for the workplace efficiency. Basically, they're trying to get more efficient. They're trying to get more efficient at work, and there is dozen of tools available for them as well. So, and also to cover the first question which you were asking me, if you ask me today, they are choosing a prospective employer completely based on the value alignment, the flexible working hours, more focus on productivity and sustainability, more focus on productivity and sustainability rather than a mindset of a typical 9 to 6 or a 9 to 5. They're looking at enhanced productivity, they're looking at flexible ways of working, a lot more value alignment, and last but not the least, a lot more learning and development opportunities for them. And
Right.
when we talk about learning and development opportunities, the modern age tools comes into picture automatically to help them sustain the workplace efficiency. So these are the things they are looking at compared to a branding as well. So that's my 2 cents on this.
Right. It's not just the work itself, it's how the work gets done and how they'll be doing the work and what they're learning along the way. Paris, I want to go back to what Milena was talking about in terms of the fears about this technology, misplaced or not. How are you helping employees overcome those fears and instead use it to, as Paris and Deepa have said, enhance their decision making and remove the tedious tasks from their work lives?
Yeah, I would say through education, transparency, and setting a pace for change, right? Just really managing the change. So we have the earlier adopters who I have employees who built bots for themselves and all sorts of things, already. We have those that are in the middle of the road, really curious, but maybe don't fully understand. Some that are really eager to learn, and some that are completely afraid. So it's really how do we reach all of those folks and utilize them in a way to kind of those early adopters to bring others along. So It's an education, transparency, and pace. We've created a framework to help people along. So what we started with is asking leaders to meet with their teams in small cohorts and just identify what are your tasks that take up most of the time of your job, right? Not even thinking about replacing it right now. Just jot down what part of your job do you hate? For me, it's all the administrative tasks. I'd like to get rid of all all of them, right? I want to spend my time actually engaging. The next piece is once you have that list, we've created some hackathons and opportunities for teams or teams from different groups to get together and brainstorm together and share ideas and collaborate. And then the last phase of it is really evaluating. So once we had an opportunity to maybe create, let's evaluate and see how that has impacted us. I think the other thing too is you have to be careful with like leading with AI because that's the original thought is that it's going to replace my job. But through these conversations, what's happening a lot more is about automation. And Milena talked on that a lot. There's just so much that you can actually automate that's a game changer. And then AI is an additional layer on top of that versus AI being the consistent leader across the board is what I'm saying.
Shipra, I'd love you to build on what Paris is saying, and can you talk a little bit about creating AI cohorts and governance structures and how you balance encouraging adoption, helping your early adopters get even better at it, and then also bringing along those who might be more skeptical?
Right. There was this survey very recently that was conducted, and they asked how many companies are truly using AI. They mentioned about 80% of the organizations said that they are, and within the same organizations, only 28% were using it in their HR space. So the adoption and whether it's consistently adopted across all work streams, that's kind of a questionable thing. I mean, the organizations have recognized that AI will be their competitive advantage, and it's not just the part of their revenue generating work stream, but across all areas of organization and at all levels. So there are organizations that are more risk tolerant or high risk takers. They are early adopters, early in their journeys, more mature in their journeys, while probably within the same organization, HR probably is still working through some of the obstacles. The key there to really crack into is where you should be starting, the starting point. And the starting point is establishing the governance structure. HR is highly regulated. It's compliance heavy. And we're seeing many of the states publishing their AI regulations, and some of them even specific to HR domain. I believe Colorado is a little bit generic, but Illinois, Maryland, they have specificities related to HR. And when you kind of throw in GDPR in the global space and other data privacy expectations, there's a lot to assess there. So essentially, the starting point being our governance structure, and that leading itself into trust and higher level of adoption. And when I say governance structure, it's governance typically not so interesting, not so attractive as a term, but what it would help is laying down the rules, the processes, the documentation, having a context to best practices, establishing guardrails related to ethics, bias, anonymity. And those are the things that allows people to put in their trust, and that trust then leading to higher adoption.
Well, I want to follow up on that because organizations say they want to take a human-centered approach, but what does that really look like in the era of AI, Shipra? And where do you draw the line between the tasks and assignments and projects that AI could handle and versus what requires the human input?
Yeah. So what we're seeing more and more with AI is that AI is kind of not so good in the beginning, not so great towards the end either, but they can do that middle piece really well. So where we saw there was uh, longer timelines in kind of crunching through the execution part of a lot of stuff, say analytics, new model that's being put together. There is something that what everybody's recognizing is that deciding what to do, where there's that human interaction, humans making the decision, coming together, where they understand the nuances, the culture, the agreed upon, understanding on what we need to kind of look at, and then having AI do that more of the crunch work, the the grinding of things. And then once that output is there, then having that output and kind of using that more towards the decision making. So that's where the timeline overall has shrunk, and those the AI-based tools are kind of helping. Uh, Without a human-centric approach to this, there there is a lot that I believe in order to be able to trust the outcomes, in order to be able to say that this is really what we need to be looking at, that human-centric interaction is kind of necessary.
Well, one of the people who are most involved with the human-centered approach are managers themselves. So Deepa, I would like to ask you about the role that managers play and how you see managers playing a different role now that they're overseeing larger, more distributed teams, and sometimes team members who are in fact AI agents, not humans.
Yes, absolutely. We are trying to develop a very positive work culture. First of all, we are trying to develop a very positive work culture where people are really interested in learning in groups. So we are trying to cultivate a shared working culture, learning, and a lot of exciting things which we are doing in this era where a lot of AI tools should be used basically. So a lot of calls where all the team members are together. They are trying to understand all the processes together and things like that. These are some of the things which we are doing so that they can adopt new tools and technologies basically, so thereby come out of their old methods and ways of working and adopt the new ways of working and things like that. So which is getting more exciting and more exciting for the workforce. And definitely that is improving their productivity as well somewhere, right? Yeah.
Now let's dive into how these changes can actually be implemented and executed on in organizations. Milena, you work with companies at different stages of adoption, and as you said, it's a spectrum. What separates the successful AI early adopters from those that are struggling in your eyes? Milena. Ooh. Oh, can you? I think you're on mute again.
Anyway, so thank you for
Happens to
letting
the
me know.
best of us.
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say is you really need to think through the strategy and actually carve out some management time to push it top down and to then encourage the bottom up folks who are the early adopters and who can't wait to play with this new thing and can't wait to boost their own productivity with it. But they kind of the bottom up early adopters need to then be paired with a top down mandate that this is okay to do. In fact, it's great to do. In fact, it's going to be great for the company, and in fact, I'll give you company time to experiment with it. So don't do it on your own dime. Don't do it in your weekend and in the evenings. Not everybody has the luxury to give that to the company. Actually carve out whatever time you can, right? Maybe it's a day a week, maybe it's half a day a week, maybe it's 5 hours a week. I don't know I wouldn't make it less than 5 hours a week because it is really something that's happening to all of us, whether we want it or not. The second thing I'll say is that I've seen a lot of companies adopt some technologies in a very sporadic, haphazard, kind of innovative way, which is great in that first phase, but then have their hands slapped and reprimanded and have to roll things back because they were done in a non-compliant way. And it's totally fine. It's, in the very first stages of things, but now's the time to actually start saying, okay, we have a strategy, we want to do this thing, but we also have to do it in the right way with the right respect for people's privacy. We can't be uploading personal data to the cloud. You have to actually segment your own, get your own instance on ChatGPT instead of feeding to everybody's universe of data and your customer data and all that stuff. And so it's so important to start investing in the compliance side of these things, because otherwise these things just going to go awry and it's going to create more problems for your business than the productivity it brings. So I'll just kind of leave you with that. But finally, obviously, for any business initiative, you have to put a little bit of budget toward it, and you have to carve out a part of your P&L and say, this is what I'm comfortable based on the rest of my company's performance, the state of the world, whatever. I'm carving out this much for budget because, carving out your own instance of ChatGPT is going to cost you. Doing data centers the right way so that your AI can, churn through the data and get you your insights and empower you in XYZ way, it's going to cost some money. So if you want to do it for free, then it won't happen as fast as you could do it otherwise.
So be intentional, be compliant, and be willing to invest in it. Shipra, you advocate for consolidating tools rather than just adding more tech. How do you make this transition without disrupting current productivity and while teams adapt to these new ways of working and new workflows?
It's critical. So what we advocate to the organization, what we really tell when it comes to the use of tools, AI in this space, is really you have to kind of take a step back. Forget about your tools, forget about your systems, forget about everything. Take a step back and actually decide what is it that you are looking to achieve. What is your business case? What is the strategic outcomes or business outcomes, use cases that you're looking for? And then once you have that, then you bring in the whole perspective of AI and say, all right, so these are the areas within the AI platforms and tools that we would want to bring in to help achieve these things. Now, it's yes, anytime you're going through a transformation like this, you do have only a certain number of hours in a day. So putting together time and let it be a project-based initiative or just general operational, but then doing it through new roles like change agents, those will help establish stronger outcomes for you. And it's kind of critical that we understand that if this is the direction we want to go in, and we want to do it in the right way with the right governance structure to make sure there is compliance handled appropriately and there is trust within the organization that all, ethics, etc., everything's followed, to leading it to a stronger, responsible adoption, then you do have to invest appropriately both time and budget to make it happen.
Excellent, excellent. And as we've been pointing out, Paris, there's work to be done, even as employees make these adjustments and learn how to work with these new technologies. Have you found any specific development and coaching strategies that are effective for maintaining their productivity during these kinds of massive adoptions and changes, especially as people are working in remotely?
Yeah, I mean that's also just been tough for us, right? Being remote, it has its own challenge, just one and the same. But really trying to make development, it's going to be a weird response, but to be more structured but flexible and approach at the same time, right? So the other piece of that is also we are really focused on skill building. And that's our approach to just development, is really helping people develop the skills that they need for the next role. And what's interesting for us is being a startup, every job I don't have a career path for. And that's different than a traditional company that's been around for 25 years. So some of the roles that we'll have in the future haven't been created yet. So what I like to do is, first and foremost, I encourage everybody to take more of an entrepreneurial approach to their career. I call it being like a corporatepreneur. And so really helping them create career paths that are really in tune to them. And with that, what skills do you think you need? And let's come up with that development plan together. So I would say for us, development leads the way, skills building. We do have some structure with traditional programs, but we put it with a twist like mentorship, but also just creating real time on the job kind of practice opportunities. For example, I had an employee who had reached out to me and had an interest in a particular topic. And we actually hold an HR all hands meeting specifically to cover some of this stuff for folks. And I had that person pretty much co-lead it with me, right? So, we developed the content together and gave them that opportunity to lead. So really trying to just create opportunities. And that's where I say that flexibility, where it doesn't have to be always within the role, your defined role and lane, but as opportunities come up throughout the organization, really being in tune with what employees want so we can kind of give those opportunities as well as focus on skills in a traditional way with like LinkedIn learnings and more structured talent development opportunities.
Corporate entrepreneur, I love it. Deepa, how do you create that culture of shared learning that we've been talking about?
Yes, absolutely. As I told you earlier, we are trying to work in teams. We are trying to work in a team setup, in a team model. For most of the important topics, we are gathering the teams together so that the communication becomes much more easier. And we have workplace tools like Confluence, we have Yammer, you have your LinkedIn Learning and things like that, to give some live examples of how the workforce can kind of jam together on a same topic. So we have all this. We have Yammer, you have LinkedIn Learning. So that's how we get together on a particular topic, and that's how we are cultivating a shared learning model. And especially in the field of HR and TA, all the panelists here agree, there is a lot of scope where AI can be used, right from right from interacting with the candidate till the time you're onboarding them. There's a lot of adoption of new technology and tools and AI, and there is a lot of scope for shared learning, which we are doing in this era of 2025, where even an interface with the candidate or your panel can be automated, basically. For example, most of the level one interviews today is happening through an assisted AI bot today, actually, where there are volumes playing behind for a recruiter to fulfill. We are using AI assisted bot. So how do we get together all the people to ensure that we learn together, as being a manager's kind of dream, to how to improve their productivity? And I think we are getting there. We are getting better every day in that area.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to leave our audience with some practical next steps. So I'll ask you first, Shipra, how are you using technology and data to make better workforce planning decisions? And what metrics have you found actually are predictive in terms of future organizational needs?
That's a really good question. And what we're noticing more and more, the idea is to be able to utilize this to help the business in its growth strategies. So in some of the models, and I'm not sure within analytics where how broadly utilized everybody is, but talking more in components of functional areas and information that we have pulled together that we use in order to do predictive analytics, is we are looking at maturing workforce, wherein what kind of skill gap we will soon start to see, and what is it that we can do in order to fill in that skill gap. That skill gap essentially, do we and kind of marry that information to the presence of the organization, if we have the Global Capability Center in any of our locations across the world, where we do see the ability to source those skills and to be able to keep us, going and not starving the business in that area. So critical skill assessment has been one of the areas that we have looked at. We have also started with essentially having a skills and qualification based catalog. The intention has been to kind of utilize more and more of our internal talent and creating the talent talent retention and top talent talent development. Those are just so core to how the organization values what the people bring to the table, at the same time how we can so effectively use this analytics information through their talent profiles, through their reach within the world, internal roles, etc., and career plans with the large language models. The information can, so we can allow for so much of word-based responses, and then still kind of make sense of it as we translate it into our analytics modules. And so with that, we are able to do a lot more in terms of predicting and ensuring that we can have successes for all our key roles. So those have been kind of most of our focus.
Excellent. Well, so as we've heard, Deepa, there needs to be some budget put behind this. What's one productivity investment that seemed expensive up front but delivered surprising ROI for your organization?
For the organization where I work in, I think the two biggest investments which we have made is Confluence and SharePoint, because we have been able to use it as to kind of learn, store data where all the users can access it very easily. So I would go with Confluence and SharePoint as one of the most important investments which we have made, wherein most of the users can get together and work, process data, learn from each other. Yeah.
Excellent.
In our organization, these are the two. Yeah.
Right. Milena, you made the point earlier that companies need to give employees time to experiment with these new productivity tools and play around with AI, but you also need to convince leadership that it's worth it to do them on company time. What are some ROI metrics that have helped you make the case?
Well, I think it really depends how your business runs. And so this is a question that is almost has a different answer for different orgs, but I would just say, how do you measure success in every department? For example, in the development team, we measure success by how many story points, I'm using developer lingo here, are we able to complete in a week per head count in, per head count in coders, right? And our lead developer is leveraging AI tools. And it's like, I could never complete the same amount of story points without leveraging the AI tools that I'm using, right? And so immediately you can kind of see that there's like a productivity increase because it's tangible and it's tied to productivity results. In our sales team, we measure productivity with how many touch points are you giving to the customer, to the cold calling or cold emailing of people or whatever, right? How many meetings are you getting booked? And if you start leveraging these tools for optimizing your productivity, are you able to achieve, again, more per head count is the point. In our delivery department, again, which is very different for every company, like we measure productivity of the recruiters and, in terms of how many leads do they engage per week and what do those response rates look like. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I look at that department on really, are they moving the needle on the gross profit? Right? So I'm kind of looking at how much am I spending on COGS? I don't even know what that stands for, but anybody who runs P&L knows what I'm talking about. So in proportion to like the overall revenue, how much am I spending on COGS? If I'm improving that margin, gross profit margin, which is rule 101 in business, try to improve your gross profit margin, then I'm doing something well. And obviously sometimes you're doing this with different initiatives, but let's say everything else is static and not changing, and now you're starting to introduce AI automation, and all of a sudden your growth probably starts increasing. Well, here you go. That's like a very, very concrete proof that nobody will have pushback against.
Well, there you go. And Paris, I want to give you the last word here as we wrap up. If someone leaves this session wanting to make one change tomorrow, what is the highest impact change you'd recommend?
I am a very simple person, and I would say prioritization is clarity. And then, yeah, like prioritization is clarity with everything going on, whether it be in your business or in the outside world. What matters is what matters, and everything else falls by the wayside. So really prioritizing things and keeping the main thing the main thing.